Hey COMM4100 students, this is the voice of Dr. Alyssa Sloan, and I'm going to try to walk you through the assignment that you'll do each week in our COMM4100 class, which is summarizing and applying ideas from each ethical framework or each chapter that you read. So what you see here is the template that's included for you in each module of our COMM4100 course. So what you're looking at is the week 1 template. You have to read 4 chapters for the week 1 assignment. You'll read chapter 1, chapter 3, chapter 5, and any chapter of your choice from part 1 or from the altruistic section of our textbook. So again, in week 1, you have 4 chapters to read. So you'll see 4 blank templates for you. This blue one, that's 1, green is 2, red is 3, and then we're back to blue for 4. So 4 chapters, 4 templates to fill in. Instead of me explaining this blank template to you, what I thought would be really helpful is for you to see an example work, and we'll kind of talk through what is successful in this student example. Okay, so this is a student example of chapter 1. It's really cut and dry, hopefully. The student identified the chapter, the name of the chapter, who wrote the chapter. So the textbook is edited by Christians and Merrill, and they are the author on some of the chapters. For example, Merrill is the author of chapter 1, but sometimes the editors of our text had outside contributors. So make sure that you identify the correct author of each chapter, because that is the person you'll be citing in your summary and application section for each chapter. The central person for chapter 1 is the Dalai Lama. Now, your first big task as you read each chapter is that you are going to summarize the chapter in your own words. This section right here is creating what would be ethical rules. You'll be interpreting the chapter in order to create those ethical rules. What's really important is that you write them as rules, not as words or as concepts or phrases, and then that you support that idea. So let me explain. Here, the student did not write the word compassion, which is just an idea. The student did not write compassion is good, because that only tells us how to feel about compassion. Instead, the student wrote practice compassion, which is a rule or an instruction to you, the writer, and to me, the reader, or your classmates, the readers. So you're not just identifying concepts, you are interpreting concepts within each chapter in order to identify rules that the central person might write if they were writing a list of 5 or 10 rules or instructions, recommendations for someone to live by. So a real example could be when we were kids and running around in stores, our parents did not yell out the word running. That's just a word. They didn't yell out the phrase running is bad. That's how we feel about running. Parents yell out do not run. That is the rule that we were told to follow as children, especially in public and stores. So that's your job. You need to not just identify concepts, but go the step of telling us how to practice that concept. What is the instruction related to that concept? And if you can, to the best of your ability, try to vary your phrases. So it's not always do and do not, but tell us to practice or embody or seek, things like that. The other big important step for us, or for you, as you write each rule, you have to support each rule with quote or quotes from the chapter. So if practicing compassion would be a recommendation, an ethical rule the Dalai Lama would tell people to live by, how do we know that the Dalai Lama thinks that is important? Well, Merrill 2009 told us that in the highlighted section and again in the highlighted section. So it's important that you are supporting each idea, each rule, with quotes within the chapter. Here you're going to explain how the idea of universal compassion or the Dalai Lama connects with the altruistic stance. Since we're reading the Dalai Lama's universal compassion chapter in the altruism section of the text, then you need to kind of make that connection, why the idea of universal compassion is altruistic. Here in this section, it's just important that as we read, that we are not lazy readers. So if you come across a word that you're not very familiar with, look it up and write the definition and provide a citation for that. Now, into the application section of each chapter that you're reading. I have written for you an ethical dilemma. And so an ethical dilemma is a scenario followed by an either-or option, neither of which are great. So it's not like, for example, Sharon is choosing from, I'm going to do the good thing or the bad thing. Because life isn't so black and white, cut and dry. In real life, ethical dilemmas are, should I do a good thing or a better thing or a sacrificial thing or a fatal thing? So we're just kind of really trying to practice the complexity of dilemma. So I've written those for you. And what you'll do is you will take your rules that you wrote in an earlier section and apply those to the dilemma. And you have to apply more than one rule to the dilemma. So here the student has applied 3 of his or her rules to the dilemma. They applied the first, the third, and the 7th rule that they identified from this section. So 1, 3, and 7 are applied to the specific dilemma I've created. So they kind of restate the rule or the principle and then apply it specifically to this Sharon dilemma. And so that's what you really have to do in this section. Identify multiple rules and how they relate and or apply to the dilemma. Then you have to choose a choice or make a moral choice. So again, each dilemma says, should Sharon or should X person do one option or the other option? In this final section, you actually have to make a decision based on not your own feelings, but on the chapter's ethical ideas. So based on what the Dalai Lama has taught about universal compassion, what should Sharon do in her dilemma? You answer that question here, and then you support your conclusion with information from the framework. Not your own feelings, not your own beliefs, your faith beliefs, or personal history, but based on what you're learning in that framework. So, I hope that this visual and oral overview of the summary and application, and especially that the student example, is helpful to you so that you know the expectations of this weekly assignment. And if you have more questions or you need further clarification, if I'm your instructor for this version of COMM4100, please email me. If someone else is your instructor, please email them. All right, good luck.